You're listening to the Pithy Chronicle. History with a bite. I'm Caroline.
And I'm Erica. And we bring you history's dirtiest deeds, dripping with sarcasm.
Are you hungry yet?
Welcome back, Pithy listeners. I'm Erica.
And I'm Caroline.
This week on the Pithy Chronicle, we are diving into some old school history with very current implications.
Ooh.
That being said, I will be using two pronunciations of the same word. Some sources refer to Kyiv, K-Y-I-V, which is the Ukrainian spelling, and others to Kiev, K-I-E-V, the Russian spelling. So I'll be using the pronunciations as provided in the sources. You're going to hear me switching back and forth during the episode.
This is in no way a political statement, but at the same time, we're supportive.
Of Ukraine.
Of Ukraine, which, yeah. The dual pronunciation is not a political statement.
No, it's just what's in the history. So while we're on housekeeping, remember we are on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook, and wherever you get your podcast. But the biggest request we have for you is to download. We are trying to reach our goal of 1,000 downloads a month. We are really close to that already.
All you have to do is just follow.
Yeah.
And then you'll never miss an episode. It'll automatically download, and when you've listened to it, it goes away.
And then we get to meet our quotas, which means we are more easily found by folks who don't know us. We're able to get sponsorships, which all translates into more pithy history goodness on your airwaves.
More scandal.
More sarcasm.
More sensation. More sex.
Without further ado, let's talk about one of the most controversial saints in history.
Yeah, controversial for a saint, that's for sure.
I don't know any other saint with as high of a body count.
Well, remember in our very first episode of the Pithy Chronicle, we did Isabella of Castile. And there was this really big push to canonize her and make her a saint. But she's not, and I'm willing to bet that Olga has actually killed more people than Isabella of Castile.
I would be very interested.
Now, with the expulsion of the Jews, it really does up Isabel's number.
It does, but I guess it's like, how are you categorizing?
If you're talking pure venomous, I'm murdering you because I don't like you or you've offended me, I think Olga wins.
Oh yeah, she had her hands in this. Like
Lady Macbeth dripping with blood on her hands?
Yes.
Out damn spot. Out I say.
In no surprise turn of events, we have a circa baby, 890 to 925. And just so you know, since we say circa baby so much,
we have an amazing new t-shirt.
I cannot wait to buy it, honest to God.
It's my favorite thing we've had so far.
I've got to agree with you there.
Yeah.
So, circa 890 to 925 in Pleshkov, or modern-day Sovk, about 12 kilometers from Estonia, and sits on the Velikaya River.
Okay.
This city was accessible by the Baltic Sea, and that makes it pretty accessible to this Varangian settlement. It's first mentioned in the histories around the time of Olga's marriage to Prince Igor of Kyiv in 941-ish.
Okay, hold on. Before we continue, I've heard Rus, Kyiv, Varangians. These are a lot of old names that kind of sound familiar. Can you help me with like a map?
Yes, a little breakdown.
Yeah. An audio map.
We will have an actual map in the show notes.
Look at that.
But let's break it down. According to the Russian primary chronicle, the Rus were a group of Varangians, possibly of Swedish origin, who had a leader named Rurik. Rus, R-U-S, appears to be derived from the Finnish word or Swedish word rusti, which is associated with a man of ships, or a seaman, or a rower.
Like the Vikings?
Exactly like the Vikings.
Ooh, yay. I got it right.
These raiding Vikings came and settled in this Balkan region near Estonia and Lithuania, and of course, modern-day Russia. Russia even comes from Rus, which means a rower or a seaman.
Oh, that's cool.
Who'd have thought that?
I had no idea that the root of the term Russian was based in their maritime background.
Maritime? Yeah.
So, you mentioned Rurik, and I remember something called the Rurikid dynasty that we have discussed with Ivan the Terrible. But we are now many centuries before that.
Yes.
So, how does Rurik fit into the story today?
Rurik is actually Olga's father-in-law.
Sure. Why not?
This one's very easy. But Rurik, that came to Russia, was known in Europe as Rurik of Dorestad, a Danish Viking who conquered the lands of Jutland, ruled over the medieval town of Dorestad briefly, held Dutch lands, and in his later years came to the lands of Novgorod and taxed Slavic tribes in exchange for protection.
Classic
Classic
trade.
Now, the Russian Primary Chronicle has a little different telling of how this came to be.
Does it?
Are you shocked?
What? A chronicle giving a different and stained glass version of events?
I love that you say that.
Looks all pretty.
Because in 862 BC, allegedly, quote, discord thus ensued among them, and they began to war again against each other. And they said to themselves, let us seek a prince who may rule over us and judge us according to the law.
Okay.
Because that definitely happened.
That usually happens in just that way. Let us find someone else to tell us what to do. People do that frequently.
I mean, it kind of did that one time in Scotland.
They have done it before. It has been done, but it's unusual to say, let's bring in an outsider to fix this.
They went along over the seas to the Varangian Rus, and they said to them, our whole land is great and rich, but there is no order in it. Come and reign over us. They thus selected 3 brothers, which with their kinfolk migrated. The oldest, Rurik, located himself in Novgorod. The second, Cineas, in Beluzero, which Belarus maybe?
Yeah.
And the third, Truvor, in Izborsk.
Wow.
That's a lot of words, man.
That's a lot of words. So they went over there and said, hey, we've got all this rich land. Do you 3 brothers want to come rule us?
Mm-hmm.
And what made them propose this to these 3 brothers?
I guess
Were they incredibly good looking? Did they have some sort of degree in leadership?
This is what the Chronicle said.
Okay. It feels very rose-colored glasses. No, we were invited to come take over and rule this great and rich land.
Totally invited. Now,
right?
That's what the Russian Primary Chronicle says.
Mm-hmm.
So, just to summarize here.
Rurik is her father-in-law.
Rurik is the father-in-law.
And he was supposedly the one asked to come over, and he ruled Novgorod.
Right.
And he started the Rurikid dynasty.
And Olga married Igor of Kyiv, Rurik's son, the founder of Kievan Rus. Now, Igor was also a Circa baby, which, ooh, nice.
A male Circa baby.
And his dates range from 861 to 875, and he did not inherit the throne directly, but from a kinsman named Oleg, who had conquered Kiev and was a storied warrior and conqueror. He was Oleg the Wise. Everyone liked him.
Okay.
And he inherited before Igor because Igor was still a child, and this is who Rurik was like, hey, I trust my dynasty and my son to you.
Wow.
Why this wasn't classified as a regency and instead he is the leader, I'm not sure.
Okay.
However, Igor does take the throne in 912, and what we know about him is not great.
What did he do?
We're going to start with Igor's first military campaign as Grand Prince. It was an expedition into Transcaucasia, so that's Georgia, Azerbaijan, Armenia, to expand trading routes through the Caspian Sea. Shock, we're trying to get a warm water port.
Oh my gosh. History is so cyclical.
This has never happened before.
And certainly not happening now.
No. Anyway, shortly after the campaign began, Igor was documented as leading his forces to repress a Drevlian uprising.
Oops.
And the Drevlians are a Slavic tribe that paid tribute to the Kievan Rus. So they paid the tribute for protection. Hey, don't let the Mongols come and get us. Don't let other Vikings plunder us, please and thank you. And so while Igor attended to the kingdom, his Transcaucasia force continued to plunder the Baku region of the Caspian, obtaining vast riches.
Excellent.
So to secure safe passage home, Igor agreed to pay tribute to the Khazars, which were a confederation of Turkish-speaking tribes, which Oleg, his predecessor, had defeated in 911. The Khazars did not honor their word, double-crossing Igor and ambushing the Kievan Rus fleet as they began their return to Kiev, killing an estimated 30,000 Russian troops.
Ooh, wow.
I mean,
that's a lot of people.
Too many people.
We've seen bigger numbers.
We have. It would not be until 941 that Igor would again lead a campaign to the Transcaucasias and Asia Minor.
Are we still looking for that port? Warm water port?
Yep, he would advance his forces along the shore of the Black Sea to plunder the Byzantine provinces east of Constantinople. So upon learning that the Byzantine fleet was busy fighting Arab forces in the Mediterranean, the Rus began pillaging Constantinople.
When their back is turned, when the cats are away, the mice will play.
Yeah. Initially, it was a success. They plundered and secured booty, and unfortunately, it cost men's lives because...
That's how war works.
Because the Byzantine Emperor Lecoponos outfit 15 retired ships with the famous Greek fire, inflicting untold casualties and crippling the Rus fleet. So Igor had to
hurry on home,
go back with his tail between his legs to Kiev. The Russians who survived but had not escaped were beheaded, securing the Byzantine victory and a conclusion to the 941 Rus-Byzantine War that I did not know actually existed.
I had never heard of a specific one. I just thought it was a continual, centuries-long conflict.
It's always something. It's like that,
it's just
that grain of salt in an oyster but never produces a pearl, just keeps itching. So after a third failed campaign in the Transcaucasus...
You know, he might need to give up.
Maybe.
It has not worked out for him.
Because he was defeated this time by Muslim forces. But in 944, he decided to go on yet another attempt at confronting Byzantium.
He decides, I've just lost for the third time against the Muslim forces, but I think now I'll go after Byzantium.
Which is, I would think...
even harder.
Bigger and scarier.
Yeah, bigger, scarier, harder to conquer. That seems not bright.
Rather than inducing a second Rus-Byzantine war, the Byzantine Empire sent peace offers and agreed to renegotiate the trade agreement made by Oleg in 911.
Okay. I like that they're saying, even though we could totally
decimate
you, we'll do peace to save everybody's lives. I like it.
This was a symbolic victory for Igor. But he was not much longer for this world. His luck was run out.
He didn't have any luck.
This was like his only little snippet of luck.
This was his good princing. Yay, Igor, you princed well.
This one thing.
That one time.
For one time. And it was really because of Oleg.
That one time with Byzantium?
I like that.
Yeah.
When visiting the Drevlians in 945, Igor allegedly demanded more tribute than he had previously agreed upon.
So he's just secured a diplomatic victory, and he's like walking real tall. He's got his cape drawn out behind him. He's feeling special. And he goes, Drevlians, I'm gonna need more tribute. Who
took part in the Kievan military campaign against the Byzantine Empire.
So they've pulled their weight.
They pulled their weight. Even after Oleg's death in 912, they were still doing the warlord things, but then they were like, I don't think we're gonna pay tribute. And they did stop.
So it wasn't just that they didn't pay him more, it's that they didn't pay him at all.
Yep. So he sent the Varangian warlord, Sveneld, and this guy, like a tax collector, warlord, CPA with a badass longsword, and made them pay tribute.
You know who I don't want to be? Is the accountant who's given a sword and told to make them pay up. No, thank you. My pocket protector would definitely not survive all the bloodshed.
So basically, the Varangian IRS shows up and they're like, okay, fine, I'll do it.
Okay.
But Igor comes back and is like, this is not enough. And he attempted to levy tribute.
So he wants to punish them.
Yeah. And the Drevlians revolted.
So the CPA gets the money. And then Igor's like, now there's interest for your bad behavior?
Yeah. And he went in person to exact this toll, which was maybe not the greatest idea. Because the Drevlians tied Igor's legs to two bent down birch trees and then let the trees go thwop! Whing! And watched as the Grand Prince's body was torn apart, thus ending his infamous and forgettable and terrible reign.
Yeah, he's really not a great Grand Prince. I'm not mourning his loss. His death is fascinating, if not for me. No thank you. But he's just not proved himself all that worth keeping.
No, he was trying to double dip on folks that he had led into battle several times.
Yeah, no, he seems kind of scummy.
Not classy.
I'm not going to say he deserved to be split in half, but he certainly didn't deserve to be a Grand Prince.
He didn't do anything to not deserve it. To not deserve the birch trees.
Well, I mean, being split in half. That sounds
fair.
Bad.
Just slit my throat, please. Get it over with. Anyway, the next logical course of action, according to the Drevlians and their prince Mao, was, to propose.
Propose
to Olga, the star of the show.
Oh, we're talking about a woman today. How fun.
Well, we've got to get all the boring man bits out of the way before we get to the good stuff.
The men in the background. Yeah. So Olga, referring to our saint here, wife of Igor.
And they have one son, Stanislav. He was only about 3 at the time of his father's death. The Drevlians really hoped to accomplish 2 things. To prevent a retaliatory counter-strike by Kiev through a marriage alliance.
We can replace him for you.
Yeah. And, of course, they wanted a seat at the big boy table and to improve their status within the Rus state, achieving equality with Varangians rather than being a vassal.
So, I get that. But they didn't think that was aiming a little too high? Because it's a pretty high step up in the world. And it's not like it's been earned through loyalty. It's been earned through murder.
So here's where it would be really interesting to know the actual dynamics of their relationship. Because maybe
they knew she hated him.
And maybe this was a really convenient way to get him out of the way.
Maybe they thought she'd be pleased that he was gone.
Maybe.
You're welcome.
Because here's the thing. And I've only got this from one source, so I'm very hesitant. But allegedly, Oleg was Olga's father.
Okay. The kinsman.
The ruler before, So sorry to westernize this, but like a War of the Roses situation where you merge the lines.
Okay.
Unfortunately, Igor was just stupid as sin.
Clearly.
And couldn't do anything.
No.
And Olga, as we'll later see, turned out to be rather wise and rather strategic like her alleged father, Oleg.
Okay.
Right. So maybe that was it. There's no real proof for it other than one of the sources, but nowhere else said it.
It's fun to hypothesize.
It's fun to hypothesize, and I think if he was her father, it does change the dynamic.
Yeah.
If he's ruining
what her father has put together over the last 3 decades, yeah.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
So Prince Mal sends this delegation to propose.
How romantic.
And she says, quote, "Your proposal is pleasing to me. Indeed, my husband cannot rise again from the dead, but I desire to honor you, the emissaries, tomorrow in the presence of my people. Return now to your boat. I shall send for you on the morrow, and you shall say, we will not ride on horses, nor go on foot. Carry us in our boat, and you shall be carried in on your boat."
Why on earth would they request to be carried in on their boat? I know it's part of her trap. I just think it's a weird thing to do.
So, I don't know.
Is that like a common custom?
That's the thing. I don't know. Is this a thing of honor?
You are so important, you don't even have to leave the transport you've brought with you. We will just physically carry it.
Assuming this was a great honor, the emissaries were like, dope, I'll do it. And unbeknownst to them, Olga had already kind of ordered this great big ditch dug.
Graves. Cool.
Just one big mass grave, and dumped them in with the boat on top and buried them alive. And while being covered in earth and stone, she asked them whether they found the honor to their taste.
As they're being buried alive. That's bitchy. To murder emissaries who probably didn't kill the husband.
But shooting the messenger sends a message.
Sends a message. Burying them alive, though, and then taunting them feels like overkill.
Well, while dead man can't speak, Olga certainly can. And she did.
Oh.
Immediately, she took the next step of her vengeful plan.
Oh.
Because it's not over yet.
There's more.
She sent a message to Prince Mal, who was still in the Drevlian homeland. Remember, he did not come over for this. And Olga asked him to send his most distinguished men to her in Kyiv so that she might go to their prince with all due honor to marry him.
So she outright lies. It's not that she doesn't mention, oh hey, I buried your first convoy alive.
She doesn't mention that.
But send me the people that are most important to you and I will absolutely marry you.
He's going to assume that when he sends the wedding party essentially to come get her, those emissaries are just going to ride back. No big deal.
Yeah, I can see why he would send the second ones.
Why would he ask for proof of life if it's a letter in her hand saying, hey, I'm going to marry you?
True enough. He's just very naive.
Unaware of the fate of the first party, Mal was elated by Olga's positive response, thinking she's down to pound. So he gathered his best men and sent them to the Rus capital. And when they arrived, the Grand Princess ordered her people to draw their visitors a nice hot bath. You've been traveling. We are gonna clean you up. We are gonna have dinner.
Have a rest.
I mean, you can't beat this level of hospitality. The Drevlians bathed, fully expecting a nice full meal when they finished, and weary from their long journey, the emissaries went straight into that bathhouse, no questions asked.
I would, when I travel, the first thing I want to do is have a nice hot shower.
And then Olga sprung her trap. She had her people set fire to the building, starting with the doorways. Because if you start the fire in the doorways, they can't get out.
Buried alive, burned alive. She's got some tricks up her sleeve.
And so Olga now sent another message to the Drevlian homeland, and she said to Prince Mao, "Prepare great quantities of mead in the city where you killed my husband, that I may weep over his grave and hold a funeral feast for him," which I assume is tradition.
Sure.
And so he was like, all right, we're going to party. We're going to say bye to your husband, and then we're going to get married. We're going to solidify this alliance. All's well that ends well.
So he is expecting this huge party of his own men.
Because Olga finally traveled to Khorestan, the capital of the Drevlians.
Does that work out?
He threw the funeral feast for her, and the Drevlians thirsted after all the mead they had gathered and soon engaged in heavy drinking. They were like, oh, we've got the gal. Olga and her followers played along, but just laid off the booze. And when all the attending Drevlians were drunk, could not stand up, the Grand Princess ordered her relatively sober retinue to kill the hosts, egging them on to avenge the murder of Igor, and it was a downright massacre.
It's the Red Wedding.
Yep.
Or the Red Funeral. How big are we talking in terms of a massacre? Like
5,000 people, and that's the, very conservative side of the reports.
That's an enormous feast. I mean,
Big feast.
Murdering aside, feeding 5,000. Most weddings are, max a couple hundred people. 5,000.
But it's not over.
What?
It's not over.
She's literally murdered them all. Who is left?
She hauls butt back and gathers an army to crush whatever was left of the Drevlian tribe. And the war began very much in the Kievan Rus' favor. I mean, my gosh, you've killed everybody.
She's demolished most people,
yeah. So they've pushed all of the people into the cities, so they're in concentrated places.
Okay.
Unfortunately, they have fortified cities, so that's when the problems began to appear for Olga.
Okay.
Khorestan, the capital, in particular, withstood her siege for over a year.
This is the capital where she went to the funeral feast.
Yep.
She murdered all those people. You can see why those left, probably family members, would be really angry and willing to go through quite a bit for their own revenge.
But never known to lack creativity, our girl Olga sent the city's inhabitants a message.
You know what? Let's don't claim her.
Yeah.
We are doing the episode, but saint or no saint, there's a lot of blood on her hands.
Olga sent the city a message. Why do you persist holding out? All your cities have surrendered to me and submitted to tribute, so that the inhabitants now cultivate their fields and their lands in peace. But you would rather die of hunger without submitting to tribute.
Is she lying?
No, not from what I can tell.
Every other city had given up. It was just the capital city. That's honestly a pretty reasonable message.
Do I think she wanted to harm the nobodies, the civilians? No, I don't. But we'll get into her motivations at the end of the episode. But I think she was probably tired. Like, daggone, it's been a year. I'm ready to go home.
Defeat is coming. So the question is, do we all die before we're defeated, or can we decide to just surrender and make the best of it?
She sent a message that she would lift the siege in exchange for tribute. And all she wanted for tribute was 6 birds from each household in the city.
Like a chicken?
I assume like sparrow, pigeon, a bird.
She must like white meat.
They were relieved to be given any way out of this. They agreed and sent thousands of birds to Olga's camp. Olga then ordered pieces of sulfur with cloth wicks tied to each bird, and then they were set ablaze and the birds released. And naturally, they flew back to where they knew, the Drevlian city.
So we're talking homing pigeons.
They returned to their nests and set the entire city ablaze. And Olga's troops killed anyone who fled the city and enslaved the rest.
Ooh, that's arson on a grand scale.
Yes. Everything's wooden. Everything's highly flammable.
And what ingenuity. I mean, they literally sent the murder weapons to her, and then she sent them back. economical.
Yes.
I would have assumed these birds would be dead.
What can you do with dead birds?
Eat them.
Not pigeons.
That's why I asked if it was chickens.
Fair.
Because when you're asking for a tribute, money makes sense. Lumber, stone, food, all of these resources make sense.
Well, livestock very often was given as tribute.
But not live birds. It's not a cow.
No, it's not.
Sparrow just doesn't provide that much food.
Anyway.
All right, she has murdered everyone, even the birds. Is there anyone or anything left to die?
The complete massacre of the Drevlians is over, but there's still one man who really wanted to marry her.
But why? She's clearly a serial killer.
Trust me.
A creative one at that.
When are they going to learn? Well, this is where we get to talk about her appearance.
Oh.
According to a Byzantine chronicle, Olga shone like the moon by night, and she was radiant among the infidels like a pearl in the mire, since the people were soiled and not yet purified of their sin by holy baptism.
This makes me think of the Romans, who believed that beautiful women were like sirens, and that the beauty of their outside belied a very ugly interior. And I'm just saying, it's clearly going to hold true here.
After her destruction of the Drevlians, the emperor at the time, Constantine VII, invited Olga to visit Constantinople. And that's when this description was written, because Olga allegedly converted to Christianity.
See the saint bit.
Emperor Constantine VII asked for her hand in marriage.
Pearl or no pearl? He's heard of her many deeds.
And you would think that this would be a boon for her. He's the Byzantine emperor.
Yes, but she's currently, seemingly, the regent of Kiev and Rus. And marrying anyone at this point would make her lose power. It's very Elizabeth I of England. If you marry someone, they get to rule over you.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because Constantine was a widower, but he had kids from another lady. So you're right, her son, Stanislav, would have gotten nothing.
Was she concerned about saying no?
I can't imagine that she wasn't. She couldn't defeat Byzantium.
Yeah.
So she had to use her wits. So she says, I want to convert and I want my people to convert, but I need someone wise like you to guide me. Would you please be my mentor and my godfather? Help me convert.
And the role of a godparent at the time was a very spiritual one, very important within the church.
Well, apparently he didn't give two rat's butts about that. He just really wanted to play into that daddy fantasy and was like, yeah, girl, let's do it.
Oh.
He was like, we will play that daddy fetish.
Daddy, oh, gross.
She was baptized. And then he says, you are officially a Christian.
Let's get down and dirty.
Marry me. Let's do this. And she says, oh, but you are my godfather, and by canon law, we cannot be wed.
Is that true?
I mean, at the time, that was the situation.
Well, then he's an idiot for falling for that, because he should have known that.
He should have known that.
It's like she read the fine print in the conversion document, and he just didn't. Smart cookie.
He allegedly replies to this and says, you have outwitted me, oh Olga.
Oh, Olga.
Yeah, I
She
did.
did.
We do know that at least in some ways her conversion was sincere, because she did have many cathedrals built, and she did try to get her son to convert. He would not. He was like, I am a pagan. This is how you have raised me. What in the midlife crisis is going on with you? By that point, she has reigned and been Grand Princess for about 16 years, and he comes into his majority. And she's not like some of our rulers who don't hand it over. She does hand it over to him, but remains as this guardian, companion.
The Dowager Princess. I'm impressed that she handed it over.
I was very shocked.
Based on her violent streak, that she seemed to enjoy the power.
And if you want to know what happened to the Drevlians,
and I do,
Prince Mal died in exile a few weeks after the siege of Korostan.
That seems convenient.
Whoopsies. The Drevlians just died out-ish.
Well, certainly the capital city, everybody died.
There was still a very, 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 very small minority group. There's still maybe 200,000 living in present-day Ukraine.
Oh, so some of them did survive Olga's wrath.
Some still survive.
Okay.
It's very, very small.
Survived, but very minimally. And they never were able to rise to their former power.
In our show notes, there is this really interesting article about the descendants of the Drevlians and a certain art exhibition that has gone up recently. It is so fascinating, and they do paintings out of straw.
That's cool.
It's something I'd never seen before, and it was
like
really
a textured painting?
They boil the straw, strip it, and then paint the straw, and then weave the straw into a painting.
And this is all part of the Drevlian culture that survives. That's just cool, I gotta say.
And here's what I want to leave us with before we talk about her motivations. It should be noted that the Russian primary chronicle's reliability on a number of things has been questioned by historians. But we do know that stories in medieval society were morality tales. How to rule, how not to rule, how to exact, consequences on your enemies, those sort of things.
Right.
Whether or not Olga's story falls into this category, we're never going to be able to know unless there's some fabulous...
undiscovered source, right?
But what this chronicler believes is that she freaking decimated the Drevlians somehow. Whether that's burned, beheaded, whatever.
Boiled alive. She's got so many options.
We can't know.
Okay.
It was incredibly difficult to find anything other than Mal's death in exile. He doesn't even have his own Wikipedia page.
That's just sad.
It's sad.
He deserves a Wikipedia page. He might be a circa baby, a circa death, a circa ruler, but the man should have a Wikipedia.
And it was incredibly difficult to find anything on the Drevlians other than this encounter. So it may not have been by birds or boiling or burning, but her wrath was so complete that this man and his entire kingdom is a footnote in her story in history.
Because in the end, her story has changed from a vindictive woman who tried to retaliate against her husband's murder to the reason that Christianity was able to spread through the Rusland area, and that's a massive geographical location as well as population.
The one thing that I found most laughable but also convicting in her hagiography, her story of sainthood, is that Olga represents the duality of mankind, that in one person can exist such good and such evil.
That is a very interesting justification by the church for canonization. And I don't necessarily disagree with the concept that we all have good and evil within us. I do find it weird that we've decided saints are allowed to have equal, or shall we say slightly unbalanced amounts of those two.
Not only is she a saint, she is given apostolica, the rank equal to the apostles.
I'm sorry? The 12 apostles plus Olga.
Plus Olga. Forget Matthias.
That one.
No one cares about him.
She didn't even get her own son to convert. No.
But her grandson did, and he was the one who officially ushered in Christianity and declared the Ruslands a Christian nation.
Okay, but...
Caroline, before I extrapolate on my opinion, what was she fighting for?
I would have said power. At first it feels like revenge, but it felt like revenge really was a dish that was very tasty to her. And she wanted more and more and more. Sounds like at first she fought for revenge, and then she fought for power, and perhaps to show her might as a symbol of women can do this. But when you said she released the throne to her son when he came of age, I was surprised, because I would not have thought that fit with her personality. So at that point, it feels more like maybe she was fighting for her son and his inheritance and the power of Kievan Rus. She was trying to maintain for her son the legacy of Kievan Rus and not let it be destroyed. I'm not sure. I think it sounds like she was doing it for her child, which I find very interesting and not what I would have thought.
Here is what I think. And I am basing my opinion of the psychology of this whole story based on one source that cites Oleg as her father.
That you like the best.
And I do like it the best. So here is what I think it is. It was revenge, but I think it wasn't revenge for her husband. I think her revenge was far-reaching because they had dishonored the alliances and the vassalship between them. Not only had they tried to rise up against her, they had dishonored their word with her father, they had killed their ruler, and then presumed that they could just walk in and treat her, a princess in her own right and grand princess by marriage, as a broodmare for an alliance. She was fighting for revenge, and when her revenge was exacted, when she could put down her sword, she did. It is one of the very few examples, if only that I know of, in history where a ruler or a noble has said, it's enough.
As in, when she handed over the power? Because I would argue that she could have said it was enough quite a long ways before murdering the entire Drevlian tribe.
I mean, yes, sure, we cannot judge her by today's morality. And was the mass massacre of an entire people, was genocide wrong?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
But we know of historical figures that have committed similar atrocities for less of a reason, and we still praise them. Henry VIII, we talk about him all the time, and we stop at his 6 wives because that's a headline.
It's the scandal.
It is, but he executed more people than his daughter Mary, but Mary is Bloody Mary.
Because she's a woman. Is this part of her history so interesting because she's a female exacting the revenge? Had Igor himself done all of this, would it be a footnote?
It would,
yeah.
I think.
That's interesting. She's literally just fighting for her spot as a woman to be listened to.
And respect.
Heard,
my
and
God,
respect.
Don't come in here and dishonor my father, kill my husband, and then treat me like a thing to be bred. Absolutely not.
Fighting for respect.
She comes from the Viking tradition where there are Brunhildas that we talked about, and there are Fritigans, and there are women who are shield maidens.
That's true. I also think about her time with the Byzantine Emperor as being a bit of a fight for that respect as well.
Exactly.
You're trying to sleep with me. I can't murder you. That would be above my pay grade. But I can circumvent.
Before we close out, there are 2 things that I want to say. In case you are thinking, the birds bother me.
The birds really bother me because it just
like
feels
the
like
feasibility
it wouldn't have worked. Yeah.
The United States Army tested a similar tactic in World War II where they would send flaming bats to burn down Japanese cities. The tests went so well that the testing base was burned down. So not impossible.
Okay.
Which I didn't know about that.
Okay. Flaming bats. Oh my God. People are already afraid of bats. You're probably made someone's phobia much worse right now.
I mean, isn't that my job?
No, but it's fun all the same.
And finally, the story about her outwitting the emperor. Whether it went down exactly that way, we're not entirely sure since it's found in the primary chronicle and kind of nowhere else. But this is something you see in Eastern Slavic literature. It's something we talked about with Book Talk for Book Talk, this idea of having a battle of wits. You can outwit the Byzantine emperor. What does that say about you?
Proving the need for respect for women even more, that she can outwit the highest of the high.
I have to imagine that she probably enjoyed being a ruler, did not enjoy being a wife.
Yeah, I don't think many women at the time enjoyed being a wife.
It
was not a partnership like hopefully people are able to enjoy now. It was often not consensual.
And, more power to her.
So maybe she was fighting for marital rights for women, the right of refusal.
Give me the right of refusal, and if not, I'm gonna burn you alive, bury you, and send birds to burn you down.
She sends a message. And with that, I'm Caroline.
And I'm Erica, and we are Pithily Yours.
This episode is brought to you by the Pithy Chronicle, LLC. The Pithy Chronicle is intended for education, entertainment, and non-commercial purposes. Any views or opinions expressed in this podcast are personal and do not represent those of people, institutions, or organizations that the owner may or may not be associated with in a professional or personal capacity. While we offer lots of sarcasm, this podcast does not offer any advice or services. Listening to this podcast may induce fits of laughter, unexpected distraction, or uncontrollable rage at the subjects, hopefully not at us. We hope you learned something today. If not, so sorry. Please be advised we are not experts in the following fields: medical, legal, financial, technological, thermonuclear engineering, submarine warfare, neuroscience, or cat husbandry. Thanks for listening to our little disclaimer. Just covering our history-loving asses. Bye!